Hey everybody, it's your boy Free Space, and today I want to be talking about stuff. I know I did a short on this on what could have been in G5, but that didn't go through because it was canceled too soon. So I'm going to do a whole video on it because I didn't get everything I wanted to say in that 3-minute short because I only was able to discuss 2 things. Now let's get started. One of the news I mentioned in the short is that the new main 6 would have gone in transformations. That was awesome. Looking at what I was able to find, the leaks, and before I forget, I was able to get most of this information from other YouTubers like CXD, Sugardon, and Draco Prime 220. I'll try to put links into their channel in the description, so please go watch them. If you're a fan of My Little Pony, they're pretty passionate too. So just like me. So let's continue. Yeah, one of the new episodes would have been focusing on Hitch and Sparky on something in the Dragonlance. They would have explored more, which I thought would have been nice to see more of it. But only that, Hitch would have been able to turn into a dragon. Now that would have been great, because transformations in G4 have rarely happened. We remember that episode where Fluttershy turned to a bat pony, then she did it somewhat again, but a costume for the Halloween thing. And they did all turn to breezies, but that was just one episode. So G4 never really does much of transformations. This concept for G5 would have really separated it. So yeah, Hitch would have been able to turn into a dragon, and the rest of the main 6 would have had magic charms that would have caused other transformations. For Hitch, he would have gotten a dragon tooth, which would have turned him into a dragon, which would have been awesome. Like, he was really holding his own against Opaline, but Opaline was just kind of toying with him, and he was doing his best. Now imagine Hitch as a dragon. Actually, that would be worse because she would just take his dragon fire, but against Allura, who's ice, that would be a good fight. So yeah, that's kind of a shame. Also, there would have been a Breezy King where they've all been turned to Breezies, but it would have been mostly for Zip, so she would have been mostly able to turn into a Breezy. Next would have been a Nova Charm. I think that would have been Sunny, or I can't remember. Then there would have been like then next would have been a Pony Shell, which would have gone to Pip, which she would have been turned to a Sea Pony, which also they all would have turned to Sea Ponies in a special, which would have been awesome, because we never got to see much of the other tribes, even in G4, other than, well, certain occasions. But it would have been nice to see like them turn to Sea Ponies, know what happened. Maybe they have a little history of Equestria we didn't know about. What happened to Mount Ares and Sequestria would have been nice. So yeah, it could have opened a lot of stuff. Next would have been the Crescent Moon, and this is the one I really want to talk about. It would have been a Halloween special. It would have brought back Bat Ponies. Now, Bat Ponies rarely been used. Like I said before, Fluttershy turned into one, but it was just for one episode. Then she did it again as a costume thing, and we rarely even see them, other than at one time when Princess Luna had them pull her Carter thing from the Halloween special. And honestly, this would have been so cool because, again, G4 never really touched this topic of the Bat Ponies. But in the special, they would have been called Nocturnas, which would have been cool. And I think they would have also explored a new realm, which sounds cool, but this episode would have been Misty focused, which means she would be able to turn into a Bat Pony. Now that would be awesome. And I think one of the characters people love in the show is Misty and Zip. And having a Misty focus episode would have been nice. I would have enjoyed it too. And having Misty turn to a bat would have been awesome. Would have been see how she would look. I know she would have wings. She would be able to fly. And that means she would have to learn how to fly from Zip and maybe Sunny. And I wonder if it would have changed her mane or maybe done something to her horn. It just would have been a very cool concept. Next would have been Rainbow of Light, which I don't know who would have gotten that. I know Izzy would have been an Aurora Corn, which was awesome. So yeah, this, what I talked about in the short, this would have been awesome. The new main 6 having transformations would have been a turning point for the show, a big turning point, because G4 never did it. They rarely ever did it. And this, having that whole concept of transformations, would have really set it apart, would have added better combat, story, animation. Sorry, I hate that they never did it. I don't know what Hasbro, with the budget or how bad it was doing, but this, come on, this was something great. This might have turned things around. But yeah, Honestly, I don't want to cry over spilled milk because, well, a lot of spilled milk compared to what this is. So yeah, I want to go to the next one. One of the next thing was that I talked about the finale, how it would have been. YouTuber CXCD found out that the sorry, the main original, sorry, I can't speak. Twilight and her friends would have come back, but her friends were turned to stone. Now, that would have been great. It would have been awesome because to see the old main six interact with the new one, because that would have been great. It would be like how the pillars come to modern Equestria after being 1,000 years in limbo. And honestly, that would have added a lot of unique storytelling, because it would also reveal that Sunny's mother was also in Skyros, which is great. How did she get to Skyros? Was she an Alicorn secretly? Did she have relations with Skyros in some way? Did someone in Skyros tell her that Sunny was meant to be an Alicorn? We don't know. And also, that would have had a lot of interesting impacts in the story. Now, one thing I said before is that Twilight was coming back. It was confirmed by many of the people who worked on the show that she was in the Wishing Star, and that she would have come back soon. And I think that's what hurts me most. She would have come back. And I do believe this would have been the biggest turning point for the show if they brought her back. If they just kept it for one more season or just one more chapter of Twilight coming back, it could have changed the show. It could have gotten people back interested in it, because Twilight was back. We were finally getting answers to what happened to Equestria. Why was she in the Wishing Star? What happened? Why isn't she in Skyros? Were her friends turned to stone? Did she turn them to stone? Was it Opaline? Was it something else? Did they choose to turn to stone after what happened to face the new threat? What happened to the other tribes? Are they together? Did they just go farther away? She would have answered a lot of questions for us to know. And I think that's the massive change. I feel like if they just would have kept it for one more season or just one more chapter of Make Your Mark, bringing back Twilight, that could have done it. That could have really just changed everything. It would have gotten people who are not interested in the show back, even though most would think this is just like a desperate attempt. It most likely would, but this was already planned. Those who don't know, Hasbro had like a 6-year plan for this show. It was meant to start in 2021 with the movie, then 2022 came the show, then it would have gone to 2022, 2023, 24, 25, 26. 7-year plan. It had a 7-year plan for G5, and it was cut at 2023. So it barely even made it halfway, which sucks, which really, really sucks, because this, I get it. If it's not pulling its weight, you're gonna cut it. But honestly, when you divide your show into two animation styles, dividing your team and resources, you're gonna lose more money faster. And I know I did a whole video on why G5 failed. It's literally in my channel, you guys can go watch. I highly recommend it. I made a lot of good points. But honestly, yes, it would have been amazing to have the old G6 meet the new G6, and when Twilight would come back, it would have answered a lot of questions on why everything happened. Was Opaline the one who caused the whole tribe to divide? I know in the comics they had Discord explain that something happened. Would he come back? It would have been nice. I wonder how he would react to see Fluttershy alive. Still just turned to stone. This could have had so much emotional implications, good storytelling. This would have brought back more people, but that would have been the finale. But Twilight would have come much sooner than that. Next, they would have had like a special, like a Sea Pony Spectacular or something, but I couldn't find much on it. Next, Opaline would have come back, a big one, and she would have worked with Allura. Now, that would have been awesome, because Opaline's a fire alicorn and Allura has ice powers. You put those two together, fire and ice. What could be more perfect? And it would justify why the others would also need transformations to battle against her. Most likely Hitch would fight Allura, like I said before, and the others with the transformations would have tried to go against Opaline. Can you imagine Misty as a bad pony fighting Opaline as payback for what she did to her? That would have been awesome. It would have been a fun episode. Her showing that she's not the same scared filly that she used to be. She's grown, she's gotten stronger, she's Misty. And that's what really hurts. Like, again, this hurts because this would have worked so great if they just would have just continued. or at the very least just done it in the Tell Your Tale animation, because they'll have the bean mouth thing, so it's cheaper animation. That's why a lot of shows did it back in the early 2010s. Steven Universe, Star vs. the Force Evil, Amazing World of Gumball, because it was cheaper to produce. But yeah, it also had been revealed that Izzy would have had a Pegasi lost cousin named Fizzy, which is funny, and they would have had a prosthetic wing. And I think this is interesting because we never see prosthetics really in the My Little Pony franchise. Can anything get a prosthetic? I know you can get a prosthetic leg. In this case, you can get a prosthetic wing. Could you get a prosthetic horn? Would Tempest possibly, did Tempest Shadow have like a prosthetic horn, but she didn't like it at some point? That would have been interesting. Or maybe they developed it after Tempest Shadow. Like, it would have been a very interesting concept of it all. Now, one of the last things I want to talk about that I really gotta say, they would have had an episode where Queen Haven and Alpha Beta would have gotten married. Now, since the movie was kind of obvious they had something for each other, like they were bitter towards each other, not like a enemies type of deal, but more like a lover's spat, if that makes sense, or a quarry or whatever it's called. But yeah, this would have been awesome for many reasons. First, it would have, Misty and Alpha Beta would have been part of the royal family, which would have been great. But more importantly, I think this could have acted like a form of finale-ish. What do I mean by that? Okay. If they know they were gonna cut G5, like cut halfway through, then this, like, they could have just had one more special, like 30 or 45 minutes, depending, no matter which animation. Could have been like the 2D animation or the 3D one, didn't matter. This could have acted like some actual closing chapter to the series, like, okay, maybe Allura tried to attack, ruin the wedding or something, the main six stop her, the wedding goes through, happily ever after. I think this could have been the most closing chapter of it all. Because we never get an ending, because they even in the leaked episodes people are getting, Allura's still around, even the people who are animating season 2 of Tell Your Tale on YouTube. But yeah, this would have been great. A lot of people like these two. They were a really solid ship, solid couple. And like, again, this would have been like a perfect closing chapter, or closing to the everything if you were going to cut it halfway. So yeah, again, a lot of amazing stuff, a lot of great concept ideas. I'm just frustrated that it didn't go through. I'm just disappointed. Very, very disappointed. Now, again, no crying over spilled milk. Last thing I want to say is that whatever G6 has to offer, whatever amazing ideas they have, because even they are passionate about it, Hasbro, just please don't cut it halfway through. Just see it through. It might be good, it might be bad, or not at all. Maybe neutral. We don't know. So please, if you're watching this somehow, just give the next generation everything. Give it your best shot. Give it your best chance. Don't rush it. Don't cut it down if it's not producing what it needs fast enough. It needs time to grow. You can't grow a tree in a day. You can't win a marathon with just running one time. It just needs time to build. So yeah, that's Free Space signing off. Thank you all.